back to our life beginning and always. It's been some time. I know I have randomly abruptly paused this series because Pokemon Scarlet and Violet came out, but we have officially finished that and we're back. We are back. Hopefully I finish this before Hogwarts Legacy comes out, because that's the next big game I want to play on the channel, and I know that is going to take some time as well. So I don't know how much is in this Derek DLC. I don't even think we're halfway into it, to be honest. You woke up then the next morning in an unfamiliar but awfully comfortable bed. The sheets smelled of an unknown laundry detergent. You slowly absorbed your surroundings. This was Derek's place, wasn't it? And you were on a schedule. You groaned and rolled over to check the clock on the side table. It was hours before you had to leave. You had woken up with plenty of time. You had slept in. You needed to hurry. I usually wake up hella early, even if it's my day off. So it was hours before you had to leave. But going back to sleep wasn't happening. You slipped out of bed and casually got yourself ready. Soon you wandered into the living room, your mind drifting back to what Derek was last night. It was a heavy admission from him, his lack of confidence to reach out to you. You didn't want to dwell on it. It was a big day for the entire Suarez family. You didn't want to rain on the parade just because you were aware that it used to flood in the past. Derek would bring it up if he wanted to talk more about it, but until then you would let it lie. Is it Father's Day situation? I can't recall much. The man on your mind was there when you left the hall. Derek was fully dressed, a gym bag under his arms, and leaning over the kitchen counter with a pen in his hand.
Morning.
He stretched backward and settled into a more upright position. I'm heading to the gym. You might have been able to guess. I was going to leave a note in case you weren't up yet. Oh. You smiled at his consideration. He could have texted you, but he had probably worried about disturbing you. Making physical notes was an old habit of his. I think writing notes would be cuter anyway. I don't know about my girl, but usually my phone's on Don't Disturb, so I wouldn't have even heard the buzz. I'm gonna be back by 7:30 if that's alright. I'm assuming it is like 6 or so. Yeah, I'll watch something until you get back. Sure, I can read something until you get back. Have a game to play, so I'll be entertained. Can I come along and hang out? Can I go too? I want to work out. Fuck that. You would never hear me volunteer to go work out. Unless, I don't know. Not so much. Unless, the workout is a game. Like Ring Fit or something. I have games to play, so I'll be entertained. Derek dropped the pen on the counter and shot you a thumbs
Awesome.
up. Tell you about it later. I will. He nodded and headed out, bag in tow. You relaxed on his couch, appreciating the lazy start to the morning. You could decompress properly. The cushions reminded you of a couch your mom's had when you were little. It was a similar firmness, and took a little wiggling to truly feel snug on it. You turned on the game and began playing. You explored, not in a rushed progress. It was a lazy morning. At exactly 7:30 a.m., the front door swung open. Derek took a quick shower and you two left the apartment to run your errands before the day could start in earnest. Derek picked the most direct path to the nearby grocery store. Around you, the city bustled as people tried to get to work. Cars lined the streets and people hurried into various buildings. It took approximately 10 minutes to reach the automatic doors of the store and step into the air conditioning. Various displays tried to sell you on all the Father's Day deals. Okay, well, Dad is gonna get, is your dad like soap? There wasn't much about it that set this one apart from the one in your old town. We're probably gonna need a cart. You pulled one out with a smooth movement. It had a slightly squeaky wheel.
Let's get to it.
There, we're ready to go. He leaned over the handle like he was at the start of a kart race, waiting for the shot to go off. So, what protein do you want? It was a good question. At that point of your life, you were a vegetarian, a vegan, a pescatarian, a politarian. What's a pollo? Is that pollo? Like chicken? Like just strictly chicken? A selective eater, not picky and ate almost anything. Because I know pescatarian is fish, strictly fish. Pollo I know is chicken in Spanish, so I don't know if that... Alright, well, I'm not picky, so I'm gonna eat anything. That was something Derek was already aware of, but he couldn't make an entire meal plan for you. We can start cooking at home for some of your meals, though a lot of what we'll eat today will probably still be from my parents' house or restaurants. I'd say we'll only need 2 or 3 packs of things.
What do you think?
I'm thinking chicken, sausage, and eggs, but you can get something else. I want to make sure there's stuff you want to eat. You inspected your surroundings and thought about what you wanted. Beef, pork, bacon, lamb, turkey, salmon, cod, shrimp, tofu, lentils, beans, You want what Derek? Okay, well, I want beef and salmon. Bacon, why not? Turkey, is it like full-on turkey or like sliced turkey? I don't know, I think that's pretty good. I always wanted to try lamb, but I don't know how to cook that. But, you know, okay, let's go. That'll work. Great.
Alright,
Let's also grab some good vegetables to go with that and some rice or whatever. Let's remember to cook. Remember to check the discount rack. We should get a jug of lemonade. How about oatmeal too? We can grab some granola. We need pineapple. Sure. Oh no, let's check the discount rack because that was like the DLC. Remembrance. I don't know whose DLC that was. Was it Co's? Derek snorted. He craned his neck around to look for
I'm
it.
impressed.
You're a genius.
So?
Oh, and what were you thinking of getting for a gift? You consider your options. It need to be easy to transport. Something that could go bad probably wouldn't be the best choice. You thought about what Derek's dad would appreciate. You went for a bottle of cologne, a mug, a box of chocolate, a pack of cards, a pack of socks, a cheese and meat sampling box, a tie. Well, his dad's always wearing a tie, right? If it was my dad, I would buy him a cologne. But this is not my dad. This is definitely not my dad. So, let's get him a tie. Cool. You can always use more ties. You began your very purposeful browsing. I really hope he wears ties. Like, I'm trying to remember his dad. I just remember he wears glasses. Derek sped walked with the cart. He kept things moving but wasn't rushing you either. It was nearly as leisurely as when you first shopped with him. Neither of you were in a rush and appreciated the company. However, as adults, the atmosphere between you was markedly different. Before, you had investigated the store as if every shelf could hold buried treasure. Now the items took little attention, and you spent more energy absorbing each other's presence. Grocery shopping was more of a chore and less of an experience. What? You could make it both. What? However, even chores weren't bad with Derek. You both debated brands, helped spot elusive items, and encouraged each other to get what you wanted. If one of you hesitated over something, the other would compel the other to treat themselves. Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Mutual decisions were praised for the good taste, and strange selections were jokingly critiqued. It was the best visit to the grocery store you'd had in ages. When you checked the discount rack, there were small packets from the store's bakery, mostly cookies from the day before. It wasn't grand, but it was a more reasonably sized treat for two than, say, a whole pie. That's how Derek felt about it. He grabbed one and dropped it in the cart. Knowing him, he planned to share. After getting the goods, you went through the self-checkout to pay for it all. Derek scanned and bagged you bagged until everything was put away and paid for. The first part of the shopping trip was over. Now you had to carry it all back on foot. Ah, great. Derek loaded himself up with supplies eagerly. Do you normally carry your groceries like this? I didn't think about how we'd have to walk back with this stuff. It was nice seeing him in a good mood. I literally did not think that we had to carry this all back, because I kind of forgot we walked here. Derek was highly amused at your lack of forethought.
Come on.
Walking with the extra weight is bonus. He continued to grab the bags without asking you to help. It soon became obvious that he intended to carry all of them. You hurried and snatched a few bags before he could. You waited for Derek to finish? Nah, we're gonna snatch a few bags. You wouldn't let him get away with such a shame. Oh well, thank you. You retraced the path back to the apartment, crossing the crowded streets with bundled of groceries. The pace was brisk. Two of you had places to be and people to see. As soon as you returned, Derek dumped the bags onto the counter. He turned his head over his shoulder to face you. We can just put the cold stuff in the fridge and leave the rest. We gotta go soon. You placed what you carried on the end of the counter. You snatched the eggs and opened the nearly empty refrigerator. Where? In the fridge?
Whatever works.
Alright, wherever you'll remember it being. What sage organizational advice? You nodded along with Derek's enthusiasm. Let's do it! With confident determination, the two of you tore through the bags in search of goods that needed to stay chilled. With a team effort, it only took a couple minutes to put the groceries away safely. Nice work, Michiko! He offered you a triumphant high five. You gave his hand a loud smack. Now nothing's stopping us. We can actually eat some of these groceries we got. Immediately, if not sooner. Given the ticking clock, you had a fast and simple breakfast. While it wasn't fancy, it satisfied your appetite and will fuel you throughout the day. When you were done, Derek placed the dirty dishes in the sink. He gave them a light rinse and wiped his hands.
Right.
We gotta go. The bros are waiting. In short order, you exited the apartment as you would be staying out longer. Derek was more cautious leaving his place. Derek double-checked that he locked the door and went to his car. You jumped in the passenger seat and buckled your seatbelt. Derek started the ignition and checked behind him before he easily pulled out of the spot. George texted me and said he was already at Mom and Dad's place. He's gonna leave his car there, and then you, me, him, and Nico will all go in mine. It'd be too much of an extra hassle to make George drive behind us. He grinned cheekily with a knowing glance. But I did already tell him that you had dibs on shotgun. Thank you, you're a champ. You didn't have to do that. Does George normally get shotgun? Hope your brothers aren't mad about that. You're a champ.
You know it.
I'm happy to use my eldest brother powers for you. Derek was bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. His focus stayed on the road. He boldly navigated through the packed streets, his entire demeanor screaming his familiarity with this drive. The sounds of traffic droned on, making it easy to zone out. You hadn't even noticed that the conversation had completely dropped off until Derek spoke up with a question.
So...
That game you were playing earlier, you never told me how it was. In a gut. It was great. It's pretty good. There's worse out there. It ended up kind of awful, if I'm being honest. It's pretty good. That's cool. It's better than an alternative. So how was your gym adventure? It was excellent. I worked up a sweat this morning. Thanks for asking. That's good. What do you think we'll do today? What's your workout schedule? What do you think we'll do today? It's a mystery.
Maybe?
Sort of. George would probably want to go see a game if there's anything good happening. Other than that, he'd pick whatever's current at the movies. But it's Nico controlling today's activities, and he has a distinctive style. Expect him to pick what we usually don't do, so it could be almost anything. You'll listen to him with interest as he chatted about the previous Nico and misadventures. The bee farm in particular sounded inspired. Derek turned into the same parking lot from the day before. You'd arrive at the other Suarez's household. I forgot how beautiful their house looks. It reminds me of, like, coastal. You both got out of the car and walked up to their door, and they're I can't read. I haven't read in a while out loud. Walked up to their door in the complex. It had swung open before Derek could knock. Oh, you're so cute, George. You're so cute. Derek took a step back, not expecting it. George grinned from the doorway and welcomed you inside.
Hey!
Hey, bro.
Welcome back.
Oh, he's so cute. George fist bumped his brother, each of them excited. Hey, George, what's up? You know, life. He led you further into the condo. Nicholas was lounging on the couch. He twisted around to face you.
You're here!
Nicholas, you're so cute! I just love his style so much. Nicholas cheered and threw his hands up in the air. He hopped off the cushion, bouncing to his feet. He ran into the entryway, immediately going to Derek. Of course, we wouldn't miss it. You noticed Mr. and Miss Suarez cleaning up the kitchen. They must have just finished breakfast themselves. Oh, he doesn't wear a tie. Maybe he'll wear a tie for us this one time. Oh, looks like we have company. Welcome, it's nice to see you two. They're so... They seem like such wholesome parents. Derek nodded and his mom turned around to put a jar of strawberry jam into the refrigerator. Hello, Derek. Good morning, Michiko. How's the drive? Hi, Dad. The drive was the same as usual, but forget about that. Derek lit up with anticipation.
Congrats.
Happy Father's Day. Yeah, Happy Father's Day. Miss Suarez patted her husband on the back and he puffed up, full proud dad mood. Thank you. Oh, and my mom said Happy Father's Day too. He directed his attention towards you. Thank you again. It's a wonderful day already. Derek observed contentedly before glancing over his brothers. George had pulled out his phone at some point and Nicholas absentmindedly fiddled with his hair clips. You two ready to go?
Yeah!
I was born ready. Where are we going, though? Without Zelia's cling, Nicholas was suddenly all fired up. George crossed his arms decidedly, not as energetic. I'm not that level ready, but I can manage leaving now. Do you need anything, Michiko? Nope. Alright, then let's go.
Are you sure?
No one needs to go to potty? I mean, it was a short drive. Yeah, I don't think I would need it. Miss Suarez poked her head into the conversation, her expression too innocent. All three of her sons slumped their shoulders and sighed. Yes, Mom.
Yes, Mom.
Perfect. She clapped her hands together and the boys relaxed, all showing different degrees of amusement.
Have a good one.
Have fun and we'll see you this evening.
Goodbye. Talk to you later.
Now let's roll out. Oh, it's just us four hanging out? I thought we're hanging out with Dad. Okay. I clearly don't remember the plan here. Derek led the way after waving to his parents. He held the door for you and his brothers. Outside, he unlocked the car and it beeped. George and Nicholas beeline for the vehicle. George initially went for the passenger seat before catching himself and opening the back car door. Nicholas barreled into the back seat without hesitation. You and Derek got into the car, completing the seating arrangement that Derek had discussed prior. As Derek turned the key in the ignition, it struck you that the last time you had been on an outing with only the four of you was when you'd been the boys' babysitter. Now George was an actual adult and Nicholas wasn't that far behind him. It was surreal thinking about how much had changed over the years. Everyone had grown up. You wonder how Nicholas and George felt about hanging out with the big kids as equals. Derek cranked up the AC but kept the car in park. He leaned his head back.
What's up?
So Nico, where am I going? The youngest leaned forward, sticking his head through the gap between the car's front seats. I want to go to... How do I pronounce that? I'm sure I don't pronounce the X. So, Zake? It's a bakery. I don't know. Jake? I don't know how to pronounce it. I'm trying to think of all the ways I've seen X being used, and I don't obviously accept xylophone. So is it like sake? I don't know. Derek raised his eyebrows and exchanged a look with George. Well, that is a surprise, even more of one than I had figured. You're not a fan of cakes and cupcakes and all things sugary. Yeah, I thought you grew out of that. George's tone was more teasing than Derek's, dry with mock skepticism. Nicholas rolled his eyes. I did. Most desserts are totally inedible. This place is different. The owner is cool and we should support local businesses. They've got vegan and gluten-free options and other stuff too. Now can we get over there? The later it gets, the more stuff will be sold out. Bring it up on your phone. It should be 20 minutes from here. Derek chuckled but chose not to comment on all the defensive explanations. Your wish is my command.
Thanks.
Thank you. Nicholas smiled, sweeter than his dessert preferences. Derek brought out his phone and typed in whatever that word is on the maps program. Nothing obvious turned up. Nicholas snorted, still poking his head towards the front of the car. Try an X, not a Z.
I gotcha.
Oh, okay, so it's pronounced Zake, but spelled like with an X, I'm assuming. Derek corrected his spelling and then tapped the first result. It was open, averagely busy, and an estimated 22 minutes away. Now buckle up. Nicholas flung himself backwards and settled in his seat. Derek waited for him to click his seatbelt before shifting the car to reverse. George had been buckled since his brother had started the car, and you weren't far behind. You wondered if it was normal for Nicholas to need a reminder. The directions chimed in over the speakers to headrest. Derek shook his head. Let me escape the parking lot first. He muttered to the mapping program that as it kept giving him unhelpful instructions. Once he reached the road, it finally stopped complaining about Derek's twists and turns. George drew one of his legs up and leaned against the car door, getting comfy. If we were gonna go somewhere with the bakery, we could have gone to the grocery store. Think about the convenience.
No.
Come on, bro. We've got a car now. We can have higher standards than a grocery store's bakery section. George laughed back at him but doubled down. I still would have picked a normal supermarket. It's a classic. Derek grinned as he flicked his turn signal on. Most of his attention was on the stoplight in front of him, but he still took the opportunity to banter. Sorry, George. Michiko and I went to the grocery store today without you. Already? Yeah, I was out of basically everything. Shoot, we missed out then. George closed his eyelids tightly and hummed in thought. Remember back when Nicholas insisted on using his allowance on a carton of eggs so he could see if cooking them on the sidewalk worked? Yeah, I also remember all the raw egg puddles and eating scrambled eggs for breakfast and dinner. Nicholas shrugged his shoulders high, justified but hiding his embarrassment. Inquiring minds had to know, and it was more exciting than getting an apple. George's eyes narrowed, openly judging his little brother. I wanted to eat an apple and I did. My purchase led to zero regret, unlike your science experiment. An apple a day keeps the doctor away. I always wanted to try frying an egg on the street. I tried the egg thing too when I was a kid. George is still bourgeois. Cracking eggs on the ground is an even bigger mess than the pie fight. Hey, did you two do the thing where you suck your hands in the veggie mist? Oh yeah, this. Yeah! Who did it? I didn't. What? I can't believe you. How did you resist? The lively discussion continued through the drive. About 20 minutes later, the GPS chimed that the destination was on the right. Derek turned into a packed row of shops. Above one of them, a bright pink sign with electrified swirl letters proclaimed itself as, I'm assuming Zake. Or Jake. Or whatever. It grabbed her attention, standing out amongst the more sedate signs around it. Nicholas shimmied in his seat. Derek found a parking place along the street and carefully parallel parked. Oh, parallel parking? Enough cars zoomed past on the street that Derek and Nicholas didn't feel safe opening their car doors. You and George got out first and waited on the sidewalk for the two to crawl through. Nicholas stifled his laughter as he watched Derek contort himself over the gear shift. The spot had a meter, so Derek paid for 30 minutes worth of parking. Ugh, these kind of places? I hate these kind of places. We should be in and out, right? You're not planning to have a whole meal here. Definitely not.
Alright.
Then that'll work. Despite the minor bumps getting there, all the boys were visibly thrilled. You were delighted. Nicholas fussed with his hair and readjusted his romper. Once he had straightened it back, he nodded at George, who had waited for him. Derek marched ahead of the pack, and you were certain that he was going to hold Zake's door open for everyone. He treasured his gallantry, rushed ahead to open it first. Should I fight him for it? No, we'll just treasure it. He truly was considerate. You felt warm inside when he took hold of the handle and pushed it forward. He held it wide and waited for you and his little brothers to pass. Nicholas skipped on by with George not far behind him. You followed them but turned to Derek on the way in. Why, thank you, noble Derek.
No worries.
No problem. You continued in, and Derek was only a step behind you. It's a beautiful place that we picked out our wedding tasting stuff, right? The swinging of the door as it closed jingled a sprightly bell. It set the tone of the place immediately. A classy yet cozy atmosphere that was full of bursting with warm and inviting scents, and most everything was some shade of pink or green. If the owner could have made the green leaves of live plants around the room a delicate baby pink instead, you didn't doubt they would have. Me. The four of you went over and clustered together near the front of the shop. Today's freshly made confection sat in perfectly lined rows inside a glass display. Each had its own paper doily underneath. No other customers were inside at that time. But you weren't alone for more than a minute. The bell had announced your arrival, and the sound drew out someone from the back. Oh, hello! Have I seen you? You're gorgeous! They blended in with the store style so exactly had to be intentional. Their softly pointed face was painted with expertly applied makeup that could rival the pristine details on the cakes on offer. That was framed by a few strands of shoulder-length pastel pink hair. The rest of it was propped into a fancy updo with floral accessories. As glamorous as the employee was, they weren't too good for a homey apron. What? They weren't too good for a homey apron to protect their pretty clothes from messy behind-the-scenes work that lovely baked treats demanded. A shiny purple button on one strap had their pronouns printed out in black letters, they, them. They greeted the small crowd with a gentle, amiable tone. Welcome to the... Thanks for coming by. Okay, your name's Xavier, so is it Zake? My name's Xavier, the head baker, and I own the shop too.
Hey.
Sup, Xavier? His reply was familiar to the point of being flippant. Nico wasn't even looking at them when he said it. He leaned over and began perusing the daily selections up close. Hello, Nico. Your patronage is always appreciated. With the personal greetings between those two complete, Xavier looked over the rest of your gang with a friendly smile. It's good to see you again, too. Derek's usual conversational skills failed him. He was loath to embarrass another person by pointing out the little fact that they weren't seeing each other again. A total stall in the exchange was avoided thanks to the fact that George didn't have the same reservations. He could speak far more frankly.
I've
never been here before, only Nico. Though maybe Michiko has, I can't speak for her. He raised an eyebrow while glancing your way. He paused his small correction to let you contribute your side concerning the bakery. You shook your head at the possibility of this being a repeat spot for you. As far as you knew, Zeke didn't even exist the last time you were in the city. Not me either. I've never seen this place. That's what I thought. You don't know us. Xavier's grin was undaunted. That might have been a customer service skill, but Nicholas, snickering mischievously in the background, gave away that something else is likely the reason for their calm reaction to George's directness. You swore his brothers may not have been all together in my bakery before, but we certainly have already met more than once. 4 eyes went wide and 2 mouths grimaced at the same time in the same way. Xavier spoke so surely and plainly. Derek and George flipped instantly from viewing them as a stranger to embarrassment over forgetting someone they should have known. And Michiko, was it? I think we might be acquainted too. Really? When? Who are you? You were skeptical maybe it was a joke Nico and them were pulling? They made you curious. You eagerly waited to find out more. Your face was a perfect reflection of their shock. Probably this. One more pair of eyes grew and another mouth clenched. 2 of the 3 brothers transparently inspected Xavier up and down, trying to put together how they might have met the mysterious baker who claimed to know them. Meanwhile, the youngest of the set pretended that he was still scrutinizing the desserts. But unless they had jokes hidden in the frosting, Nicholas's highly amused smirk reflecting in the glass revealed that he was fully engaged in the conversation happening above him. George tilted his head from one side to the other and crossed his arms. Derek subconsciously scratched the side of his face at the awkward turn this had taken.
Well...
Sorry, I'm blinking on who you are. How do we meet? Xavier's eyes fluttered closed as they primly straightened their apron. Don't apologize. Nicholas with his hair clipped and wild locks is very recognizable. He hasn't changed at all. If I only saw one of you as an adult in isolation, I doubt I would have realized who you were either. As adults. That one point jumped out at George so distinctly he spoke it back to Xavier as if he was Nicholas mimicking Derek. Exactly. The last time we saw each other, you were at least 2 feet shorter. Oh, my bad. Xavier hovered their flattened fingers in front of them, like they were resting it on a counter, roughly around 4 feet high as a visual demonstration. Have we really met you, though? I think I would remember. Unless you had a drastic change. They progressively lifted their hand up until their palm was high enough that it could have sat on top of fully grown George's head if he was closer, utilizing their tiptoes as necessary for the feat. I've always had an artist's soul, but my medium wasn't always decorative pastries. My first job straight out of high school was painting faces at the big boardwalk park. Oh, wait, what? We didn't even see that person, did we?
Whoa.
Derek's face went alight with a flash of recognition. The fingers that had been scraping his skin twitched, then started to searchingly press along the length of his cheek, as though a painted rainbow might have suddenly appeared there. George slapped his hand against his forehead. It had all become so obvious to him. The trio of excitable yet well-behaved brothers who'd come by a few times a year were some of my favorite customers. But Xavier, quite literally, didn't forget about you either, and they shifted their gaze to rest on you. And I'm relatively sure one time the boys brought friends with them, and that one of those friends was you. Oh, you finally got it. That day on the boardwalk had been memorable for many reasons, but embarrassingly, the identity of the artist had slipped through the mental cracks. A tiny chuckle bubbled out. This wasn't even the first time a lack of recollection led to an amusing reunion. You weren't as good at recognizing faces as Baxter, clearly. A huge childlike grin filled out Derek's face. He looked no different than he did all the years ago when you first met Xavier, massive muscles aside.
I'm impressed.
You're spot on. One time Ichigo and her older sis came with us, and we all stopped by your face painting stall. I can't believe we met again, and like this, in a bakery of all things. It's awesome. Derek resolved to restart the interaction on the right foot, and he finally gave a greeting of his own to Xavier. Hey again, Xavier the artist. The middle brother followed the eldest's example and offered a reprise to his original statement. Okay, good to see you again too. This is so cool. A small word, Xavier. You were speechless, you chuckled. Small word, Xavier. Xavier was just tickled by the reception. The visit was gonna be worth it for them, even if you walked away without purchasing a single slice of cake, which I feel is impossible. We were gonna buy something. At some point, Nicholas had stopped eyeballing the pastries and had leaned coolly against the counter. He also finally rejoined the conversation instead of existing as an entertained audience member. I told you the owner was cool. Oh, thank you for talking me up, Nicholas. Now that we're all reacquainted, is there anything I could do for you? Nico slipped his hand into his pocket, staying totally chill. We'll probably just get a couple things to go. I want, He paused and squinted down over his shoulder at the treats one more time. Give me an eclair and a cup of water too. Will do. Anything else? Get you? Can you say may? May you please get me? They surveyed the other 3 people in the room as they asked the question and waited for a response. George approached his only little brother at the front display, shooting him a wry smile upon his arrival, but then he quite seriously considered what was available. I'll have a blueberry muffin, the one in the middle and then on the left, my left. It looks like it has the most berries. Xavier gave 2 quick nods. Their hands were already busy putting together a box for Nico's selected pastry. Derek, however, stayed back, and his focus went to you rather than the baker or their wares.
You ready?
What are you thinking? I'm gonna pass. I'm getting something, I don't care. It's maybe a cake shop. I'm gonna get some cake. I'm not sure I'll get a better look at them. Why not try something new? I don't feel like getting something. I'll get a better look at them. Cool. You joined the other Suarez brothers and contemplated what, if any, treats to pick out for yourself. Up close, you noticed that there were tiny handwritten signs in front of the options. They declared what flavor each quaint confection was in pretty looping letters. The variety was somewhat limited, but those likely weren't the only things the bakery ever had available. They were simply what was made for the day. You decided you wanted a slice of vanilla cake, a slice of chocolate cake, strawberry cake, a Neapolitan cake, raspberry lemon cake, blue muffin, chocolate chip muffin, a brownie, and eclair. None of them. If there was a strawberry shortcake, is that considered strawberry cake? I'll go with the vanilla cake. You heard Derek come up behind you. You didn't have to look to guess that he was trying to figure out what had caught your eye. He eagerly pointed out the prized dessert.
Nice.
Looks good. Xavier, I'd like to get a vanilla cake. Absolutely. And that's everything? 2 packed and prepped boxes were sitting side by side. Xavier reached behind them for a third. Should be. Nicholas and George both gave a thumbs up to confirm that they were all taken care of. The answer caused feigned confusion from Xavier. So, you're not getting any what Derek is getting, Nico? Derek's not getting anything. The kind of teasing for someone other than another Suarez caught you entirely by surprise, but Nicholas was able to quip back with ease. Maybe I would've, but Derek isn't getting anything. You'd lose out on a sale if I copied that. Good point, you don't need to do that. Hey, why don't you be the one to pick out something for him instead?
Sorry.
No thanks, that's not how this works. It was worth a shot. The two chuckled good-naturedly. Let me ring you up. Those were the magic words to draw Derek fully over to the front. He came to the spot right across from the register. It didn't go unnoticed.
Derek?
You're the only one who didn't get anything. You shouldn't pay. Nico snapped his head around with a look of true offense at what had gone on behind his back. He folded his arm disapprovingly, catching Derek with his hand on the metaphorical cookie jar. Or rather, putting his own cookies in someone else's else's jar. Derek made a look of faux surprise that gave Xavier's response to Nicholas's non-mimic decision, making a run for its money with a scoff of played-up disbelief. You can't take away my oldest child privilege and treat him with little brothers. I mean, she goes by guest. Why wouldn't I pick up the tab for her? The middle and youngest Suarez's shared concerned glances with one another, their brows knit and their frowns salty. However, their brotherly non-verbal communication gradually softened their expressions. Their eyes carried the message that they needed, and soon they were shrugging in acceptance. Derek gave a winning grin and pulled out his awaiting wallet. He was forever their big brother after all. Aww. Thank you, Derek. I'm still paying for me, even if you're covering them. What a gentleman, you accept his generosity as well. You put out your wallet regardless. He pays for me this time. Hopefully he gets something so I can pay for him. So thank you, Derek.
You're welcome.
Hopefully. I hope I get a redemption to buy him something. The treats are paid for, and Xavier carefully passed over the crisp white boxes to their rightful owners. The Zake logo was printed in, of course, pink across the top flaps. They also handed over a cup of water for Nicholas. Thank you for your lovely patronage. Have a wonderful day. Derek, George, and Nicholas each gave a cheery goodbye and began to walk out as a group. You gave a wave and turned to leave with them. Thank you. You too. Bye. Thank you too. Bye. God, I can't fucking read. Your group's first stop of the day was completed in a sweetly satisfying way. Everyone got back into the car, same seat as before. No one had even put their seatbelt on before George asked for a very reasonable question.
Now what?
What are we doing now? Derek checked the back seat through the mirror. Yeah, what now, Nico? Nicholas crossed his arm behind his head, thoughtfully staring out the window. All eyes stayed on today's decision maker. He considered long and hard in the hot car about how to use his power. In the end, he went for his old default. The teen leaned all the way over and popped his head through the gap between the two front seats. He glanced back and forth between you and Derek with one fuzzy brow arched. What did people do when you were teens?
Oh, man.
But way to make us sound ancient. We're 23. We're not over the hill yet. Darn kids these days. You joked. We aren't old. Nicholas is a little baby. Nico wants to do what Derek did. What a surprise. You dropped your head with a heavy sigh. You merely shrugged. Darn kids these days, he joked. Nicholas was unapologetic over his phrasing. He smirked and pressed again. I meant it. What was the place to be when you weren't babysitting me and George? Derek tapped a finger against the steering wheel. I remember the mall being super cool when I was still in school, but that started to die out, huh?
What?
The mall? Really? Sparkles began to twinkle in Nicholas's eyes like a twilight sky. George shrugged a single shoulder, buckling himself in for the ride. I've only ever gone there with Mom to get some new clothes. I don't remember it being better than any other store. But if it's what Nico wants to do, I don't mind.
Let's go!
Alright, glad to see that they still like the mall. I still like the mall. I enjoy it. I just usually window shop now at this point. Nicholas launched himself backwards and bounced in his seat. He stayed still just long enough to lock his seatbelt into place.
Let's get to it.
The mall it is. Two more clicks followed as you and Derek put your seatbelts on. Derek pulled out and you were on the road once more. The drive was spent with Derek trying and failing to remember all the stores that used to be in the county mall. He listed several off, but had no idea how many were still open in the year of 2021, or if they were even real store names, or he was mixing the words up. His little brothers reveled in the laugh-inducing, floundering explanation of the magical mall of his youth. They took bets on how many of the shops they'd actually see when they got there. George guessed only about 3 of them would be there, if they ever existed. Nicholas declared that every single one would be there, even the ones that definitely sounded made up. Derek, reasonable as always, went down the middle of his own recollection, and guessed that you'd be able to find half of them there. You agree with George, you agree with Nicholas, you agree with Derek. He announced that Derek wouldn't wouldn't be right about any of them. I'm gonna agree with Derek. Derek assured you that you've made a wise decision. You felt good about your odds. When you rode into the county mall's expansive parking lot, Derek was able to get a parking spot without any trouble. There were rows and rows of cracked and oil-stained slots with only a single car or two there already. Just as Derek thought, the location had lost most of its popularity as the years went on. It was at least convenient for your needs. It was probably the only place in the city where the parking was jam-packed. The four of you filed out of the car, crossed the lot, and passed through the towering front doors. The interior of the place had a slight uncanny feeling. You'd never stepped foot there before, and I never stepped foot in here before. But I have. Well, I guess technically not in this timeline, I guess. You never stepped foot there before, and the massive scale paired with total lack of people filling it made you feel as if you weren't supposed to be in that place. Well, here we are. Take it in.
Wow.
Aria, the mailman's not here for you. You wandered up and down the wide, mostly empty halls, pointing at stores Derek had named, or almost named, along the way. It was a game of I Spy. The younger brothers were quite entertained just by that. They led the pack to get the first look at whatever was ahead. Derek and you lingered behind and gave appropriate reactions whenever one of the boys shouted at a store name that matched Derek's recollection, or one he had failed to note. The two laughed and waved back at you while you cheered and booed up at them. When you neared the end of the aisle, there was a break in the store names that could be announced. Derek used that moment to whisper a joking remark. It feels like we're babysitting again, huh? Yep, our precious big babies. He winked and picked up the pace. Nico and George had drifted further away from his watchful eyes, and a responsible babysitter couldn't let that happen. Your group arrived at the crossroads of the mall, where 3 separate halls of stores converged in the middle. Without the boisterousness of Nicholas and George to fill the space, the sound of footsteps echoed so much louder. Derek's expression twisted and drooped, bittersweetly looking at the space. Being here now is not the same. Then his focus came onto his brothers, and his face snapped back to his usual optimism.
So...
Do you guys actually want to go into any of those stores? His little brothers both had turned around to stare wide-eyed at their elder. Nicholas and George were genuinely taken by surprise at the idea of behaving as regular customers. They were visiting as sightseers at an archaeological site from times long gone. Nico blinked rapidly to hydrate his eyebrows after keeping them open for so long. An expression slipped into an uneasy grin, and he put his hands on his hips. Yeah, I'll try it. He scanned the rows and rows of stores with new, refreshed eyes. A target was quickly acquired. Nicholas pointed an outstretched hand at a black-walled skater shop. I want to look at this one. George had come to face an entirely different direction. He mulled over the suggestion slightly and was gazing with consideration at a bookstore with huge glass windows that showed off not only the books on sale, but other wares like board games and figurines. The unspoken difference of opinion didn't escape Derek's attention. He spoke with full authority, truly dusting off those old babysitter instincts. Hey, this doesn't mean I want you guys going off on your own. You're not little kids, but we're here together, and there's time to see more than one place. We'll take turns. Okay. Automatically and obediently, George and Nicholas replied in unison. They were good kids. Is there someplace you or Michiko want to go to? Derek didn't hesitate. He jerked a thumb over his shoulder at the video game shop.
Oh yeah.
That's what I want to check out. Oh wait, bro, I want to choose the same thing. Other Suarez brothers watched you questioningly, each wondering the same thing. It was hard to say without knowing for sure what the options even were, but luckily the center section had a handy 8-foot-tall map that was emblazoned with easy-to-follow categories and lists of store names. It was a veritable cheat sheet for their little game, and we're glad the 2 younger brothers found stores they wanted without needing to peek at it. There was nothing wrong with you having some extra insight, though, and you read over everything laid out. A significant amount of stores sold food. You just left the bakery and should be eating with the rest of the family pretty soon, so you decided against all of those. Beyond that, there were tons of chain stores that were very standard types of products. Makeup, art supply, perfume candle store, clothing store, accessory store, camping and outdoors. Those 3 are good with me. Art supply shop? That'd be interesting. Oh yeah, let's see what they've got. Derek nodded his head formally prepared it with a cheered grin.
Come on.
We've got a plan. The group checked out the game store, everyone went to the bookstore, you all headed into the skater shop. Together you stopped in at the art store. Do I only get to do one at a time? If so, I want to go to the bookstore first. The four of you found a large bookstore and began to drift around. It was one of the most spacious shops in this mall. George went down the very first aisle of books and you walked with him. He was focused enough that he had to be searching for something, but there was no way to tell what was on his mind. How have you been doing? Are things going well at school? What's your major? I don't think you mentioned it. So have you started seeing anyone? Ooh, have you started seeing anyone? Me being nosy as shit. You quietly browse alongside him. What are you in the mood for? I kind of want to ask how he's been doing though. But this also seems interesting. Have you started seeing anyone? He's so cute! George's relaxed disposition dissolved in a flash of color on his face. He stared through the books in front of him, unable to think clearly enough for the words printed on their spines to seep into his brain. Maybe. George's frazzled response made it impossible to not tease him just a little bit. Are you being coy or are you unaware if you're dating someone or not? We don't have a label, but well... Words failed him there and the response faded out. Oh. Is it like your brother and I right now? He chuckled softly. That was unexpected. Who knew George was actually unsure of his current relationship standing, but it seemed he was having some interesting romantic adventures in college. Good luck, George. He nodded stiffly and put his brain power to focusing on the books once more. All thoughts of his special someone were packed away for now. The books didn't hold Nico's or Derek's attention as long as George's. While he remained in one section, considered each title on a shelf, his brother skipped along from row to row after giving only cursory glances to the specifics. With a bit of distance between himself and his family, George took the opportunity to have a more private conversation with you personally. His quiet voice and being walled in by books made you feel as if you were in a library rather than a mall.
I'm glad.
Oh! I'm glad you're back, Michiko. That floored you. Not that you found it unbelievable, but you'd expected that to be a forever unspoken affection. George admitting it so directly was massive for you. That is! He's so cute! It's good to be back. I couldn't stay away. There's no way I wouldn't come see you sooner or later. I'm happy to be here. You smiled shyly at him. Oh, I smiled shyly at him. He simply returned to shopping as happy as could be. He felt much lighter than yourself. George ended up finding a newly released thriller that sounded interesting. He purchased it then went to find his siblings. Nicholas and Derek had holed up in the graphic novel and manga aisle. They looked up as you and George approached. It grinned after seeing the bag under George's arm. I'm finished. Thanks for coming with me. But now. Alright, let's go to the skater shop. Your group crowded into Nicholas's choice of store. Aggressive rock music played within the graphic tee-covered walls. It was small and cramped, making it impossible for four people to navigate between the displays together. Ugh, that sounds like fucking, Spencer's. I know Zoomies is pretty big, so I would not think of Zoomies, despite them being a skater shop. Derek and George were filtered through those narrow spaces on one side of the shop, and you and Nicholas were on the other. The claustrophobic atmosphere didn't faze Nico. He lackadaisically surveyed the scene, stopping when he came across a shelf of slip-on shoes. Nicholas lifted a checkered shoe off the rack and weighed it in his hands. By the intrigued rise of his brows, she got the impression you'd be in that spot for a while. How did school go last year? Do you have a favorite class you were taking before summer? Have you gotten into skateboarding? I was wondering, how are you doing lately? Stayed quiet? Nah, how are you doing lately? He hummed casually. Not bad. I'm glad. Nicholas let out a long, contented breath. He was fully at ease with the world. It is wild that you're literally just there and talking to me. He was so much like Derek, even when he wasn't intending to be. Well, sure, I'm really here. I still struggle to believe you're this big. Honestly, it feels weird talking to you normally instead of like a child. I hope that's unbelievably in a good way. It's weird. The smirk grew wider on his face as he put the first shoe down and picked up another, though he ultimately returned that one to the display again as well. Nicholas gestured with his hand for you to come as he turned away more. He walked back to the center of the tiny space. From there, it was easy for his older brothers to spot him. Derek and George waded through the merchandise, pressing in from all sides, almost knocking a few things over on the way. It was a rough place to be for a couple of large adult men, but they didn't have to worry about that for long. I'm done with this, he announced with a shrug. Nico hadn't got anything. He'd only wanted to satisfy his curiosity. We can go someplace else now. Alright, game store. Derek confidently strode into the local game shop. Not store. The same thing, but you know, with his younger brothers linking his sides. The set of three glanced around eagerly, then split off in different directions around the single room. He followed Derek towards the front right wall, where George and Nicholas went to the back corners. He bounced up and down on the pads of feet. Like a kid in a candy store. We should totally get something. Sure, what console do you have? None, not right now at least. Let's get something, but I don't have any consoles. So what are we getting, Derek? Are we also getting a console? A conspiratorial gleam shone in his shifting green eyes. While watching his back, Derek inclined his face closer to you to put a hand to the side of his face and shared his real plan with you. I'm gonna convince Nico to let us borrow his Switch. I know he got one last year just for himself, but what I don't know is all the game he owns.
Awesome.
That's no longer a problem now. We can pick out whatever we want here, something that we can play together. Oh, we'll need an extra controller too. Alright, let's pick Smash Bros. Because we played that together, right? Or was it like Mario Kart that we did? I chatted along with poorly restrained excitement, smiling sweetly at you as he did. Derek could have gotten a digital download of a game instead, but there was no need to spoil the fun of picking it out in a real store. Derek, let's race. Oh, I think it was a racing game, yeah? We could find a party game. Let's see what fighting games they have. There's always the obvious sports game. I'm sure they'll have a shooter we can play. I wonder if there's a multiplayer sim game here. Platform nice puzzle game. I'm pretty sure it was a racing game, yeah? You did your best to make the bold infliction of Derek's father. You got a good laugh. Perfect, let's race. The two of you worked as a team to scour through the library of Switch games for the right genre with multiplayer capability. A few contenders appeared and you had a mini-group huddle to come to a final decision. Derek had held the case high like the prize it was and marched towards the register. You plucked a refurbished controller off the wall and followed after him. Derek clapped the case against the counter with as much gumption as someone playing a winning hand in cards. He chuckled his own dramatics when you had to awkwardly slide the controller he'd forgotten alongside the game. Thanks, Michiko. No problem. Our multiplayer excursion would have been pretty short without it. Nicholas couldn't go too long without checking in on his big brother's activity. He spotted the two of you at the register, saying it was a game for the Switch. He nodded happily. The team was blissfully unaware of Derek's true intentions with buying for that console. Derek played it cool and paid for the game controller. Wait, I wanted to pay for him. He didn't look at his little brother until the deal was done and he had skipped back. Then Derek flipped around confidently.
Nice work.
Mission accomplished. Let's hit the next shop. Alright, art store. You checked over the offerings available. Most of it was stuff you could get anywhere else, but there were some decent sales going on. You were about to pick out one thing you wanted to buy. The Suarez brothers kept proving thumbs up your selection. They stuck beside you as you checked out and finished up your turn.
Okay.
We've had some good stops, but it's getting late. We've got to go home now. Nicholas generally accepted the end of the trip. That's a weird word. I've never seen that word before. Fine. Thanks for bringing us to this old place. A warmth came to his voice as he concluded his statement. It's cool that we got to hang out together. I feel like the day was so short, but I feel like that's like how it is in reality nowadays. Whenever you go see like friends or family or loved ones, the day is so damn short. You want to do all this stuff, but you only do like so little. The sweetness brought a huge grin to Derek's face. He placed a hand on Nicholas's head as he'd done for many years. I'm glad we did this too. Nicholas beamed at his words. The only thing better than having fun with his family was knowing that his family was having fun with him as well. In high spirits, he slipped out from under Derek's hold and threw an arm over George's shoulder. The middle brother linked his own hand around Nico. The affection between all three had grown stronger as the years had gone by. Everyone ambled towards the exit, feeling fulfilled. As you approached the door, George began to speak. Did anyone else notice Derek and Michiko in the bed? About half the stories he mentioned were real in there.
Yeah.
That's right! Nicholas stuck out a peace sign and cheered victoriously despite having not won himself. Something even better had happened. Obviously, if Derek wasn't right about all the stories he talked about, then he'd be right about how many stories he'd be right about. What? Okay, Derek shook his head with a laugh at the exaggerated description from his big screen. Thanks for believing in me. Always, bro. Derek's right all the time, yes, for the best. Hey, it wasn't just him, I guess that too, you joke. He happily watched the brothers. It was always a nice time when you all got together. All those loose threads had been tied up and you had left them all behind. You got back into the shotgun seat and strapped in for the drive back to Suarez home. When everyone was set, you were on your way. It was a peaceful ride, mostly quiet. After a long excursion out, a rest was in order, but it only lasted for the first leg of the trip. Eventually, the soothing rumble of the car was harmonized with the gentle sounds of Nicholas humming joyfully to himself. And only a second later, that was followed by a heart-wrenching gasp. The eldest brother instantly stiffened in his seat.
What's up?
Nicholas?
No.
My eclair is disgusting! The eclair? He ran that piece of information through his mind. The facts of the situation clicked into place. It melted. Nicholas whined at the tragedy of it all. Derek was right again, and he let out a nervous chuckle.
Never would have guessed that.
What do you think would happen? It's a cream puff-filled dessert that's been sitting for hours in a locked car during summer. I didn't think anything. It just happened.
That's a bummer.
I figured we were gonna eat it on the way to the mall. I forgot about it. There were plenty of questions and comments coming from both his brothers, but there was little Nicholas could say in defense. He took his receipt to check on the youngest. The sight was pitiful. He was slouched in his seat, gazing down into his box full of regrets. The suffering couldn't be ignored. George was compelled to offer a solution to protect Nico from the consequences of his actions. You can have mine, it's still fine. It's a little soft, but warm muffins are good. Nicholas tucked his knees up and gripped the box more tightly. A new dessert sadly couldn't undo what been done. I don't want that. I ruined mine. It's inedible. The solemnness brewing in the backseat was cracked by a bold declaration for the very front. I doubt that. Pass it over. That snapped to Nicholas's attention. He was boggled by his brother. It wasn't hard to imagine why. Derek didn't enjoy sweets on a normal day, and that one in particular was in a sorry state. But it was even easier to guess the reason all of it that didn't matter. Derek could stomach anything for his baby brother. He continued to coax Nicholas.
I see how it is.
I was always gonna try to get some of your dessert. That's the reason I didn't get my own. If you're not having any, that makes it even better for my plans. Nicholas wasn't a 6-year-old anymore. He knew a placating stunt when he saw one. He had Derek in pouty resistance, trying to brush the whole attempt off. Yet Derek had grown in that time as well. He hadn't lost his knack at tending to his baby brothers. Even if it took more effort, he pretended to be oblivious to rejection. Michiko, could you get me the box? There was a groan and a sliding shuffle sound. Nicholas had shoved the box through the opening between the driver's seat and the shotgun. Just like the guessing game, he wasn't gonna win this. Okay. You took the zinc box from Nicholas and brought it up to the front. The lid was already open and you got a peek at the eclair puddle. It was only about half as tall as it had been originally. The structure of the filled treat had collapsed in on itself. The paper doily underneath was entirely coated in liquefied chocolate frosting and pastry cream. I need us to get more affectionate with this boy. He held the eclair out towards Derek. Her fingers sunk into the sides of the overheated pastry and no resistance. They were immediately covered in sticky ooze bleeding out from the inside. There was no way to do what you wanted to do without getting messy, but it was the path you'd chosen. You made your best attempt to avoid having the car suffer the same fate as your hands as you inched the eclair towards Derek's head.
Oh.
The unexpected confection floating in Derek's peripheral caught him entirely off guard. He gripped the wheel harder while enthralled whispers could be heard from the two audience members. You're sure he might have had something to say at your stunt, but he kept himself composed and casual. He was driving, his little brothers were watching. Thanks, Michiko, that makes it easier. His eyes stayed on the road and he turned his head over so slightly to reach the treat. He didn't waste any time taking out as large a bite as he could manage. He barely seemed to chew it before he swallowed. It isn't bad, not too sweet. I'm honestly impressed. Xavier is a damn good baker. He gave the box back to Nicholas. You asked to try it. Derek made it seem tempting. You asked to eat some of Nico's steak. You took a bite of your own. Derek made it seem tempting. You did your part for Nico and ate a part of it yourself. Does Nicholas want it back now to eat? Or should I, accidental kiss this shit? I guess they asked to try it.
What?
You too? Nico scrunched his face, his teeth bristling. He nodded honestly with no hidden motives. His eyes drifted, heading towards a roll, but he stopped partway to instead close them and smiled ruefully. Yeah, you can. Thanks. At that point, the eclair was ready to fall apart in your hand. You carefully brought it to your lips. You managed to get a satisfyingly squishy chomp. The texture was miles away from what an eclair should be, but it still had very good flavor. Derek wasn't kidding when he praised Xavier's skills. Feeling a little fuller and much more satisfied, he set the remain of the eclair down and returned the dessert to its original owner. He plucked at the remnants inside. After all that, he couldn't help himself and scooped some of the mushy mess out and gave it an exploratory taste. Nico grimaced as soon as it hit his tongue. He let a heavy sigh when he swallowed it down. It's pretty gross. As true as that was, there was a breathy chuckle threaded into his words. Not so long ago, he'd been as trippy as eclair itself. Now he was starting to perk up. There was one person left who didn't partake in the event. He stayed quiet no longer. Can I try it too?
Totally.
It's all yours. The box was unceremoniously dumped into George's legs. He awkwardly grabbed it and kept it from falling onto the floor. George gave a snort. Don't mention it. There was a decent amount left. It was a quite lengthy type of confection. For Nicholas, it would have been at least 2 bites. George, however, was able to stuff the remainder of the confection into his face, and just like that, it was gone. Nicholas barked louder and clearer than before. Well, I did say it was yours. Thanks to the team effort, none of the eclair went to waste, and the soggy clouds remained over anyone's head. You remember to eat your own treat too, decide not to eat your treat after that. Now who wants some of my vanilla cake? Who wants some of my vanilla cake? We might as well share. It's just as much as eclair, so it makes for a fitting follow-up.
No.
Your trip home came with good moods all around, and soon you reach your destination. Nicholas and George jumped out of the car right away. Derek took a second to gather up the gifts he'd gotten for his father. You made sure you got your own stuff too before following after the boys. Nicholas left you right in front of it, let you in Nicholas let you right in with his house key. As he swung the door open, he announced the group's arrival with a grand cheer. We're back! Welcome home! His mother and father returned the call with a familiar reading of their own. They'd been taking it easy on the couch with the TV, but it was promptly shut off with a click of the remote. Their children were entertainment enough. You, Derek, and George stood around in front of the living room, whereas child 3 skipped ahead, going all the way around around the back of the couch. Nicholas draped himself over his dad's shoulder and snuggled up to him from behind. Happy Father's Day. Mr. Suarez reached up to clasp Nico's arm warmly. Thank you, my wonderful son. The well wishes were echoed by the older 2 brothers in unison. Happy Father's Day, Dad. Thank you as well. Happy Daddy Day. Happy Father's Day. Happy day to my favorite dad around. Oh, that's a lie though, because Mr. Cove, Mr. Holden. I mean, Cove too. Cove could technically be a dad, but Mr. Holden's also a great dad. A happy day to my favorite dad around, though. I was trying to get brownie points with Derek, you know. It felt totally natural to join in on the merry-making yourself. The content smile on Mr. Suarez's face confirmed that. Thank you very much. The man of the hour struggled to get off the cushion with a heavy cape still hanging over him, but lifting Nico along with him, Mr. Suarez managed to get to his feet. In order to keep clinging to his parent, Nicholas had to stretch his chest over the seats of the couch and lean over on his tippy toes. That was all well and good with Mr. Suarez. He opened his arms wide to invite even more hangers-on to join in. The incredibly inconvenient positioning was no hold-up for his children. Derek and George shuffled in between the coffee table and their dad, carefully arranging themselves around each other and Nico. The group came together like pieces of a puzzle, only being able to attach in specific, perfectly aligned slots. He joined in on the group hug, waited to hug him after his family was done. He smiled at the sweet scene. Join in. You had to make some mental calculations on the angles and trajectory before attempting a move. There was a single path that worked, and you took it, squeezing just barely in between Derek and George. The airtight embrace shook with rumbling laughter. Oh, look at Derek, bro. He's probably like, bro, I love this girl so much. Miss Suarez had a front row seat to the love fest. She couldn't possibly move from her spot on the couch with her 2 largest sons blocking the way. Their mom sat tight and even managed to squeeze in one hand to rub her husband's lower back. All the love in the world being poured over Mr. Suarez had him flushed with pride. He spoke to his lovely family with as much affection for them as they had for him.
What a day.
I'm so grateful to have you all here.
No problem.
Glad to be here. Yeah, glad to be here. Nico chirped a self-aware mimic of his big brother. What they said times 2. That comment was a cherry on the silly Sunday. The brothers snickered along with you. The bonding moment came to a sudden and abrupt end as Nicholas's grip finally slipped from his dad's neck. He collapsed like a broken bridge and swung face forward into the backrest of the couch with a puffing gasp. His long hair spilled over everywhere. Are you fine, Nicholas? Mr. Suarez craned his head over his shoulder to peer down at where his youngest child had landed. Still flat against the pillow, Nicholas stuck a thumb into the air. That drew out snickers from the whole crowd, but it was mutually agreed that giving each other some space was for the best. The Suarez men shimmied one after another past the furniture and into the dining area. The last one in the pack was Nicholas, who finally pulled himself upright. The mistress of the family left the couch behind as well. It was a full migration to the open air of the living room. The flow of conversation continued from there.
You doing okay?
How's your day been? Derek clapped a hand on his father's shoulder. What were you up to while we were out? With great excitement, Mrs. Suarez answered the question. I took a nap. That's cool, Dad. It is. I hope the 4 of you had a pleasant afternoon as well. We had fun. It was a wonderful time with both old and new locals. George and Derek both nodded, not needing to add more than that.
That's what I like to hear.
Good to hear it. Where current experiences were shared, funny anecdotes were told, stories seen lately were recounted. It was a low-key celebration. All that was needed to make the day was spending time all together. With a clear clap of her hands, Miss Suarez called the group to attention. Her eyes were squinted up from her smile of raised cheeks.
So?
Before it gets any later, how about we give Dad his gifts? Mr. Suarez had been patient. He waited for someone else to bring up the topic. Now that his wife had the dam holding back, swirling excitement rushed open.
Yes.
I like my gifts now. Let's do it. I'll be right back. I hid my gift in Nico's room.
Yeah.
Oh, sure, we can wait. But not long. That was tacked on to Derek's statement good-humoredly, though not entirely as a
Don't
joke.
worry.
I got it. George flippantly gestured a hand over his shoulder, dismissing his dad's impatience, but the speed he walked at was brisker than a normal indoor pace. Derek's hand automatically came to rest over his pocket. He patted the box safely tucked inside. The sight spurred you into double-checking your own stuff as all was well and ready to go. While George had to stick the gift inside someone else's bedroom became all too obvious when he re-entered the hall. A bouquet of beautiful flowers was spilling over the arms, cradled around it, all wrapped up in a pretty bow. Oh! It was a fitting choice, as a thrilled smile boomed on the recipient's face. The middle son clutched the bouquet close to his chest, a few petals brushed against his cheek. Sorry I couldn't get this into a bag, so here it is. Everyone knows what I got. And it is beautiful, thank you,
No
Junior.
worries.
Right, it's cool. You deserve to go first for a change. I can live being second. If George had been worried about stepping on anyone's toes, those fears would have been completely assuaged, but that wasn't his concern. As Derek chuckled, George shook his head. For a change. Derek, you let me go before you more than often you go first. Derek had another answer ready without missing a beat, and he laughed even more. Then we're keeping up the tradition. And this is for you, Dad. Derek brought out the sleek package and held it up for the taking. Mr. Suarez plucked it up gladly. He tucked the bouquet under one elbow and while pulling off the top of his new present. A tie! I'll use this often. Thank you, Derek.
You're welcome.
Oh, okay, he will use it. Thank God. Miss Suarez rubbed Derek's back, watching her husband admire the accessory. That will look great on the new shirt I got him. She winked knowingly and headed off the questions that statement might bring. I let him open that one earlier, so he didn't have to wait all day before presents happened. No wonder he'd been so well behaved. He'd been preemptively mollified. Mr. Suarez whistled innocently, shuffling around the tie in the box.
Thank you.
Thank you again, my loving wife. He was fully basking in reverie. Meanwhile, his supportive partner took the initiative to bring out a vase for George's flowers. They looked even better, fully spread out in glass. My turn! Hooray! Chuckling at his childlike joy, you didn't keep him in suspense and lifted up the gift bag from earlier today. Wait, did we both get him a tie? He eagerly accepted it from your hand. The bag was scanned and then pulled open. Derek might have gotten the idea first, but that just meant it was fitting a choice for Mr. Suarez, right? It must have been since held a smile on its face as he realized what it was. Another tie, perfect. Why are we thinking alike, sir? And there was one other person in the room who responded with encouragement. Derek snuck you a thumbs up when no one was looking at him. You're very welcome. Glad you like it. As usual, I should have gotten a cologne. As usual, the last person to take the stage was Nicholas with a wide sweeping of his arms.
My gift is my wonderful presence.
Oh my God, Nicholas.
Of course.
And it is wonderful indeed. It was no joke. Mrs. Suarez looked up upon Nico warmly. The temptation to baby the baby of the family was too strong. From the silence, the three other members of the family exchanged shrugs and wry smiles. After the highest point of excitement with the gift-giving, the casual get-together wound down even more. The trio, Suarez brothers, and their father were all settled around the dinner table, shooting the breeze. Miss Suarez had reclaimed her comfortable spot on the couch. There was a book in her hands. Her second gift of the day was letting Mrs. Suarez keep all the attention of the children. He spoke animatedly about his life and his work. That line of topic in particular got him going. It was explained that himself and Mr. Holden had been invited to a business owner networking luncheon, happening the next day.
Well then.
You see, Mr. Holden has a dislike for such events. In our years as partners, it has gone without saying that I am the one who attends. Although, Mr. Suarez gave a toothy grin. He was up to something. There is another option this time. I could have my responsible son attend as my representative. He could only stare in wide-eyed amazement. It suddenly felt like it was Derek's birthday rather than Father's Day. You could still remember when Derek helping his dad with his business as an equal was just as far off imagination, a fanciful thought for some day, and now you were present when it became a reality. It had sent Derek off into clouds temporarily, but it wasn't a dream or a joke. It was an actual situation he was present in. Derek gathered his thoughts and gave it a grounded response. Sorry, I can't. I've got plans tomorrow. That's understandable. Derek Suarez is in demand by all who knew him.
Oh.
Not by everyone. Derek snickered shyly, and it seemed the exchange was already reaching its conclusion. You knew what that super setting plan of Derek's was, going to the water park with you. Oh, is it? You're so looking forward to it? He had passed on helping his dad to hang out with you. Made you happy? You weren't sure what to think about the situation. You got Derek's attention to talk. It made you happy. The time you were going to spend together was important to him. He respected you enough to not drop the ball when something else came along. With complete confidence, Derek jumped back into the conversation he had momentarily left behind for you.
So...
As I was saying, things are missed for understanding. I'll make it up to you next sometime.
That is all right.
It is all well. You're already so successful and talented. I need to work hard to keep up. After years of hard work, Derek had earned so much praise from his dad, yet he didn't accept it with beaming pride or even downplay it with lighthearted humbleness. He simply rejected it. Hardly. Something had changed. He wasn't a small teenager who could only guess what it meant to be an adult and believe what he was told. Derek had grown. He had lived experiences that words could be compared... He had lived experiences of words could be compared to. What he felt he had done did not match what his father was describing, but he had to wonder why. There wasn't anyone you thought was more deserving of the terms talented and successful. No good reason came to mind. Despite Derek never looking more mature, Mr. Suarez smiled comfortingly, like he did when his son was still young. It wasn't a gesture lost on Derek. He once again showed that he was not a child. It was Father's Day, not the moment to worry his dad. He winked, smirked, and managed to smooth over the minor bump. You're still way ahead of me. And that was the end of that. Later in the evening, a hearty homemade dinner was served as the final event of the occasion. But eventually, George stood up from his chair. He explained he needed to start heading back to his dorm. It only made sense for you and Derek to take your own leave, too. The permanent occupants of the house, Nicholas, Mr. Suarez, and Miss Suarez, thanked everyone for coming. One last set of Father's Day well wishes were given, farewells were exchanged, and then it was time to go your separate ways. As usual, Derek grabbed the door first, and he held it open for George and you. He thanked him while he went through. His parents and youngest brother stood by the living room the entire time. Derek called out over his shoulder with the last note of the day's gathering.
Talk to you later.
Have a hell of a day, everybody. Thanks for letting us be here. And he followed you and shut the door behind him. I don't know how long this game is gonna be, or like how it's being broken up, because I'm assuming it's just one whole big ass story, and we're not breaking off into like more DLC. Because we already did the DLC with Derek, so I'm assuming this is just strictly story heading up to possible relationship. I don't know how it's gonna be, but I'm gonna pause it for right here for today's episode, because the episode's already like over an hour. So yeah, that's quite long. But anyway, thank you guys for watching today's episode. Stay beautiful, and I will see you guys in the next one.